Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're in the kitchen again today, and we're going to make a pumpernickel bread, but we're actually going to make a battered pumpernickel bread, meaning it'll be a batter that we then bake in a bread pan instead of a traditional loaf. I will at some point do a more traditional pumpernickel bread that is a loaf, but for now, we're going to do it this way because this is fun, easy, and with the holidays coming, fun and easy are at a premium here. So, we're going to start with 1.5 cups of just regular flour. That's it, just regular flour. To that, we will add 1 cup of rye flour. If you're not partial to rye flour, you could do it with whole wheat. Rye is better. To that, to our flour, we're going to add 1/8 of a cup of melted semi-sweet chocolate. Use semi-sweet, not your regular milk chocolates, because it mixes better and it melts better. If you do need to melt it, you can use semi-sweet chocolate chips or whatever. Just melt it first. You can melt it in 30-second increments in your microwave. It usually only takes about a minute to melt, so keep an eye on it. We're going to want to add to that 1 teaspoon of caraway seeds. This gives a nice rich flavor to our pumpernickel bread. Very delicious. Give that a little stir. There we go. We're going to want to do 2 tablespoons of molasses. This also gives us a nice rich flavor. That's the whole point of pumpernickel. It should have a rich, deep, and dark flavor. This is a delicious version. It doesn't take a long time to make because it's a batter bread. So give that a little stir in. Then you want 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. It can either be a vegetable oil or a canola. Just don't use olive oil. The flavor won't be correct because olive oil is a very strong flavor sometimes, and it'll kind of go weird with the chocolate and the coffee that we're about to add. There we go. Give all of that a mix. Make sure it's evenly distributed. Scrape the bottom of your bowl. Remember, you want all those ingredients out of there. There we go. Now we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of instant coffee. The brand does not matter. Okay, it does not matter one iota. You can use any brand you like as long as it's instant coffee. You're not going to taste a lot of coffee in this. What you're going to taste is just a deep, rich, almost roasty kind of flavor. So it's not there to make everything taste like coffee. It's just there to enhance the flavor. Now we want to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of onion powder. Okay, 3/4. You do want that in there to, again, enhance the flavor. There we go. Now we want a teaspoon of salt. Give that a mix. Again, we want these ingredients evenly distributed. A tablespoon of sugar. 1 more mix. Now we're going to add 1¼ cup of slightly warm water. It shouldn't be cold, but it also should not be hot, so just barely warm, because we don't want a cold water because that'll kill our yeast, but we also don't want anything too warm. We want this to rise at its own pace. We don't want to rush it. Yeah, look at that color. Isn't that a beautiful color? So just keep mixing that. Here we go. Now when we're about like that, we're going to add 1 heaping teaspoon of quick rise or bread machine yeast. Don't use traditional. Okay, evenly distribute that so that we can get all that mixed in. Scrape that flour off the sides. And yeah, remember it's a batter bread, so it is a wetter bread. Get that mixed in. Remember, it won't be perfect and it won't be smooth. You just want your ingredients distributed. There we go, and you should smell quite a good flavor coming out of here. Between the onion powder and the coffee and the chocolate, you should really smell your dough. There we are, that's really nice. Just make sure that yeast is evenly distributed. Once you're sure it is, then you're done. We're going to set this aside for about an hour so that it can start rising. I'm going to put it in my microwave. Put it somewhere where it's not going to dry out and it's not going to be bothered by animals. That's one of my biggest problems is I have cats. So cover it up. Don't lock a lid onto it, but maybe lay a lid gently. Or you can do like I do and put it in your microwave for an hour. Don't turn the microwave on. Just leave it in there. Keeps the humidity in, keeps the heat in, and it keeps the cats from crawling on my dough. So that looks about good. We're just going to stick that in the microwave just to rise. Remember, don't turn the microwave on. We'll come back in about an hour, see how it's risen, and get it started. All right, our dough is ready. We can now get started on forming our actual loaf. So the first thing we're going to do is just knock the air out of that. You just do that by moving it around the bowl, flipping it on top of itself, and giving it a press. That way you can just get any air out. There we go. Now we're going to set that aside for a second. Get our loaf pan. We're just going to use a standard loaf pan. I'm using my silicone pan because I like that it doesn't stick. Very light spray. If you're using a glass or a metal pan, you might want to spray a little bit more or use butter and flour to coat your pan so that it doesn't stick. This dough can be a little bit sticky, mostly because it has molasses and nonsense in it, so it can be quite sticky. So then what we're going to do is we're just going to turn that out. That's why I'm using a silicone paddle. It's easier to turn dough out. We're just going to turn that out right into the pan. There we go. Just use your, and then just push it into place. Just use your paddle to press it out of the pan and just push this into place. Give it a nice press because you do want it to fill those corners. Now we're going to put it aside to rise again for another hour. You want to keep a little bit of an eye on it because it's a little bit of a liquid dough. Don't let it come up too high above the edges of your pan so it doesn't spill over. It'll take about an hour, 15 minutes maybe. So I'm going to stick it in the microwave. You can just cover it with a damp tea towel and set it aside somewhere warm. We'll come back when it's ready to bake. All right, so our batter bread, that happens to be a pumpernickel bread, has risen up. It's puffed up decently. It will continue to puff as it bakes. We're going to bake it at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 35 to 40 minutes, around that range. Check it at 35 minutes. It may need an extra 5 minutes. So we'll come back in about 40 minutes and take a look at the finished product. And there we have it. Our pumpernickel batter bread is finished and ready to eat. It is quite delicious. It has a really deep flavor that'll impress a lot of people. It is a very dark pumpernickel, so make sure you like a dark pumpernickel before you make this. It's easy to make. It's a batter bread, makes it easy. So it's really fun to serve at the holidays. You can cook it in a bundt pan if you like, and then put spinach dip in the middle for dipping. So we hope you enjoyed making this with us today here at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.